Gokha Saricam. Got to meet him at the press conference. Great big son of a bitch. And he's taking on Daniel James. And Daniel James is just one of these stories. Like, this story is never, ever, ever not going to work in fighting. And it's the story of the everyman. It's the story of the guy that maybe later in life than most, and maybe without the experience of most, that's got a job and got a family, and he's trying to make his way through, but he's willing to put on that extra time, take the sacrifice in light of other people likely not encouraging him and even discouraging him and telling him to move on and do something else, and he found a way. He found a way. Daniel James, and all of a sudden he's this Illinois native, and he's fighting at home in Chicago. And this building went crazy. If you think Chicago calls it straight down the middle, boy, they don't. They call it for their guy. And we don't always do that in North America. We do not. I've been in that spot where I fought in North America. I've been to North America, and I've taken on a Brazilian. The Brazilian was cheered, and I was booed. And it didn't even hurt my feelings, but that wasn't even weird. That's what we do in North America. We don't have that kind of loyalty. Well, Chicago apparently does, because they not only were backing Daniel, they were booing. They were booing Gokha. So, it's just an interesting environment. Gokhan's got to walk out there, and Gokha is a Turkish fighter. And there's always something in it for me when there's a Turkish fighter, because I had some of the best training. It changed my athletic career. When I was a junior in high school, Coach Brown and Coach Shannon took what's known as a cultural exchange team. They took us out to Turkey to train wrestling. We were there for 2 weeks, but when I came back, I was different. They were ahead of us in the U.S. So when I trained with them for 2 weeks, I was now ahead, and I went right into the national tournament. So I'm now taking on guys from America that don't know the things that I know. The internet wasn't a thing back then, right? This is 1994. It wasn't a thing. You couldn't just learn and share technique. You had to go. But I went. So I know a little Turkish. So when I see these Turkish guys, right, I follow them a little bit. But Gokha was special because he dominated the fight, for one. And he dominated all aspects of the fight. He landed more punches. He landed more kicks. He landed more wrestling. He also showed a little bit more patience. The one thing that was going to fight Gokha in the ass is if he didn't have the ability to have patience, if he was going to listen to that building that was cheering against him, if they could prompt him, whether it was through boos, whether it's for heckling, if they could prompt Gokha to do something that was outside of the strategy that his coaches had laid out for him, it was going to be a bad move for Gokha, or he could show patience, and he did, and it was incredible. And there's spots you don't want to be fighting James in, right? You don't want to be on your feet. You do not want to be toe-to-toe. You want to be there just enough to get inside, to change the angles, to clinch up, to see if you can get the fight to the ground. Gokha was doing everything right, but you have to understand, these little things are things you must look for if you're looking at a prospect for a championship. There's all sorts of good athletes that go in there. There's some badass fighters that can hit you real hard. They got to do it the first couple minutes, right? There's types of guys, but then champions have something that can set themselves apart. The champions are the guys that can walk into enemy territory and not let it affect them. They can walk out to boos and hear the other cheers. They can have chatter going on, trying to throw them off their game plan over the course of a fight, which is one of the hardest things a human being can do, but he stayed focused. And, I mean, this fight wasn't being talked about as a fight that was on the cusp of a number one contendership, but it sure looks that way coming out of it, right? It looks, coming out of this fight, whatever Gokha does next and whoever he does it with, I would highly suspect will be looked at for a number one contendership.